Well, hello and welcome back. It is I, DrBossKey, and tonight we're looking at the Demon Robonoid Seeker, built by PAL Tech. PAL being standing for the corporation that's Processing Autonomous Link, or in short, PAL, your PAL in technology. Anyways, yeah, so we're getting close to finishing off this enemy. For the folks that maybe are tuning in for the first time, we are on the journey of building a shoot 'em up, or a shooter is what they used to be called back in the day. I played these shooters my entire life, not FPS shooters. And or shmups for short. So we've been, if you've been following the channel, we've been now in the process of building and crafting and tuning and tweaking basically one of our dream games. So it's been a lot of fun to see the DrBossKey universe, which has all these characters and big boss villains and abilities and powers, take on the form of a more classic gameplay experience. All right, Dimitri, thank you for the turnarounds. Let's jump into it. All right, so here we are, a very first look at the very first render. So I've got a little bit of feedback typed up for Dimitri here. So again, we're basically just doing a final render check beforehand, and in these guys, for the most part, are meant. We've gone through quite a few iterations now, so they are basically. Here's a very classic, like Gradius style enemy. So they're these spheres, and they got these big kind of glowing orbs, of course, and then they shoot their bullets at you. And in my mind, they come in all kinds of different flavors, but these ones follow these neat little S patterns, right? So we've gone through some iterations. We had a first concept there, of course. We did some feedback, kind of looking at these and what they would look like. Some more prototyping for shapes. These are basically these seeker sort of like drones, if you will, ahead of that have gone ahead from this corporation that is all about investigating strange phenomena and superpowers and things like that, you know, like lycanthropy and other things. And so this corporation sends out these drones, and they found their way to Sreevus Island, which then they got corrupted and used by Sreevus, who's this demonic titan. So you can see some versions here we did. Kind of going up to this. We're going to add in the animation. It was cool how this neat little spinny bit, so it'll be all glowy, which is cool for its like scanner. And then of course, in this case, we did a lot of looking at it from the front without the side as much. So and we've been kind of iterating through that process. Okay, so looking at that, yeah. So I think, yeah, okay, cool. So let's see. All right, so Dimitri, couple things. I looked at this as an engine as well. So just as we did these original renders, I think that you know, probably, well, let me back up. So as we did the renders here, there might be just a tiny bit too bright in terms of their highlights here, but also I think this pixel line that it's very few pixels here, just a few. I think it's a little too thin here when we're looking at it from this perspective. So this pixel line here. And I think that we probably maybe need to extrude it a little bit, and maybe pull the eye back just a tiny bit more. That was kind of the thinking there. Other than that, let's hop into what it looks like in engine, because I think that'll give you the best perspective. You see how I was playing here in the engine. Come on, engine, you can do it. For the folks that don't know this is called SHMUP Creator. And it's right now loading. It's been sitting for idle in the background for a quick minute while I ate dinner. We had steak and potatoes tonight, very classic, with a little bit of coleslaw, and we watched a little Jim Gaffigan before I got to sit down to do this evening. Wow, it's already almost 10 o'clock tonight. Okay, so I took a look. So a couple things, Dimitri. One is that just as a reminder, when we have versions like this, in order to look at them in engine, I essentially need to then cut them out, extrude them, put them into the correct resolution, right? So and scale it down. So you know, it'd be nice if we could find our target resolutions and deliver those, so I don't have to go through it. It doesn't take a lot of time, but it's a good 20 minutes of my time. So just some feedback there. So yeah, so here's the 128 by 128 version. Way too big, and there's no reason to start here and scale down in engine. So the next version down is 64 by 64. I think that starts to feel much closer to kind of what I was sort of envisioning. Technically, this pixel art version of the Robonoids here, or whatever they were called, they're scaled up by 200%. So 100% over. I have to look what their base resolution is, but it doesn't matter for us because we're not going that low in terms of resolution. So the highlights I don't mind as much in the I think in this space here, but looking at them against the darks, right? Like clearly the purple of the eyes are getting completely lost. So we need to really create a much it needs to be a lot more glowy. You know, you can kind of still see the eye here as well, but compared to what we're looking at here, of course, you can see that you can also see against like the darker background that we also are losing. Like I really like the highlights that you've got for the eye with the cracked like display visor, which is super cool. So I think what we just need to do is we need to bring that purple up. It needs to be brighter. So and I think if we create a little bit more surface area for the lens itself and the bevel, we can then brighten that up with the touch of color. It's not a ton of color, and then we can add a glow to it as well, which I'm really thinking that'll be good. So we'll have like the red glowy here, and then we'll have the purple glow. And since we've got we're doing them as classic sprite sheets, so we'll probably have, I don't know, four frames, maybe more. It depends on how many we need. Probably don't need a ton to do basically a rotator with the glow. And so both of them can pulse. They can pulse in the opposite direction. So you have the sweep, and then you have that womp with the purple. So I think that'll be super cool. And if we have to change the color to make it pop a little bit more, then we can definitely give that a try. So I think the other thing here, Dimitri, so let's go to runtime. So I did versions, so you can tell basically, so the top version, this is following basically a spline. So the spline is just a little S pattern. And this one follows the exact curvature of the spline. So and it's not really how I envisioned them, but you can see that it gives us an interesting like rotation part, right? And then this one basically always is facing forward. So and so it goes more up and down because it doesn't follow the spline curve. So you can take a look at that one there. And then I'm starting to notice that I don't know if it's a huge deal, but I think the default rotation, it feels like, and I'll show you this other one in just a second, but it feels almost like we're a little bit too low. It's kind of looking down. It's probably not the end of the world, but so what I did here is with this one is rotated by just a little bit. So normally it's at 90. So it's basically 6 degrees rotated clockwise. So then I don't know if it really bugs me a ton, but I thought I'd just point that out. So, and then take a look at the bottom one there. So, but the bottom one sort of feels a little bit more like it's, you know, I don't know if it feels like it's more, because, you know, in basically a side scroller, right? Like the enemies are coming at you. I don't know if it makes a huge difference if they're a little bit lower. I mean, because they're really just dodging the bullets, right? But I kind of felt that like, well, maybe tiny bit rotated. We can do this in the texture sheet, but mainly this is just feedback for you, Dimitri. If you feel that you're fine in this case, and I'll leave it up to you because it's just about, I can rotate it after we need to as well. But if you feel like this is fine in the way that it's sort of angled down a little bit, because now you can see how they're implementing the engine versus rotated a little, by 6 degrees counterclockwise, let me know. I'll leave it up to you. I think I'm leaning a tiny bit more towards the bottom. I like how essentially I like that when like it doesn't feel like it's kind of pitched down going like this. So I don't know if that makes a whole lot of sense. So okay, let me see. So there was that. So let's see if we can get the extrude. Let's check the highlights a little bit more because we might be a tiny bit bright. So that was the other thing here, right? So just taking a look at like the highlights against dark, the highlights against bright. So the highlights start to really wash out, which you'd expect, right? Against the colors themselves. So maybe we can just go, I don't know if we want to have a stronger rim light there, but I'm not going to, I'll let you make the decision on if you want to keep as strong of a rim light there, or if we want to edge back the, I think, you know, the, because we're looking at it from here, right? So maybe it's not as much of a, instead of the line being up here with the brightness, maybe it's in the back, right? But it's also not the end of the world. I think we're very, very close. Okay. For the folks that are following along, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for all your questions and your feedback and your comments. It's a ton of fun to just be, you know, jamming on these things and starting to see them take form, right? Like you can see them side by side here. Super, super cool, you know. And yeah, we'll catch you next time. Thanks, everybody.